The world's most technical third-person shooter, timely Gunz content. Yeah. Hey, I ever tell you about Gunz the Duel?
I remember there was one guy who was really annoying online.
That's
and
unfortunate.
He would go like, "Yo, Gunz is the best game. There's nothing like Gunz, dude." And he would talk about Gunz all the time.
Okay.
But I never saw what it looked like until recently, where I saw people like dashing everywhere.
Okay.
And shooting.
So annoying people aside, me and Min can definitely tell you that was a really fun shooter.
Okay.
It was rife with cheaters.
Ah.
And it got pretty ruined pretty quickly. And there was a sequel that people don't talk about for good reason. But the actual game, when it was out in its prime, and when we were learning how to wall run, wall jump, butterfly, slice, melee, matrix, shoot, Uzi, gunplay.
Okay.
It was really fun because
Gunjutsu.
Well, yeah. So you got to basically do the Matrix lobby scene in a multiplayer context with everybody, and then everyone had a gun and a sword, and like you would just interplay the two.
Okay.
And be lethal, and movement is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Insane movement. Then people started cheating. Then people started changing textures around, and shit got nuts. And now it's back on Steam, but not in America. Or not in English, rather, so we don't know what the fuck is about to happen.
Today, we're going to be talking about what is arguably the most technically demanding game ever made. A spaghetti-coated game from Korea that transcended all of the boundaries set by its developers. A cult classic that survived for more than...
When the frame rate gets low like that, it gets pretty hard to watch.
Okay.
Admittedly. But for me, when something is third person, I'm not as susceptible to the motion sickness. For you, let me know. Because it might get... The camera erratic movement for optimal play gets kind of fucking crazy.
I see.
Than a decade without any outside support. It's a third-person shooter / fighting game, and it's just about one of the fastest games you're ever gonna see. This is Gunz, the Duel.
Cool.
Gunz is a straightforward online third-person shooter. Players could use a combination of guns and swords to battle against each other, using martial arts-inspired combat to emulate classic action movies. The concept was pretty dope. The execution, not so much. It wasn't until nearly 3 years after the game's initial release that Gunz was made available outside of Korea in 2006. Hosted internationally by IJJI, the same company that hosted games like Soldier Front and Alliance of Valiant Arms, when the rest of the world got their hands on the game, it was not very well received. People's biggest gripe was the game's clearly unfinished state. But for the game's dedicated player base, and those who put the time in to really understand its mechanics, the bad reviews really didn't matter. Because under its unpolished exterior,
real life or in game?
The keyboard
you will ever see.
The first move a lot of players learned was called the butterfly. And in the normal game, you have all these actions available to you. So to perform a butterfly, you would do a jump, slash, dash, and
off the
block.
wall.
All those moves are moves coded into the game, but people found out if you time certain things correctly, if you are able to hit your blocking.
Okay. So this type of map, whenever I see footage of this, is this people fucking with the textures to make it more visible? Because I think that's what it is, because I don't remember the game ever having this much grayed out, like, visibility to it. And I don't know, I'm like, is this something where they're like, does anyone remember? Because I was not, everything I played, all the stages I played, this was just a foggy map in particular? Okay. I remember things were much more vibrant than like all the other stages. Yeah, you're finger plinking to do Mega Man wall runs and to stay on the walls.
Animation right after you hit a slash animation, you can kind of do this really cool thing where you're flying around the map super fast while doing an offensive and a defensive action at the same time. So if you just learn that ability alone, it kind of puts you in a different tier above everyone else. But then take everything I just said and multiply that times literally 100, maybe 1,000, and your skill level just goes up with every move that you add to your arsenal.
While Gunz as a game was pretty rough, players were able to use the holes in the game's code to develop K-style, or Korean style, a mode of fighting built around canceling animations in order to perform moves at lightning speed. This style of gameplay was absolutely not intended by the game's developers, but the techniques that players discovered pushed Gunz to a whole new level.
Like, again, Anyway, map shit aside, like the level of fucking footsie chaos that every single encounter became was like, you know, air movement, if there's a surface, you can fight on it, and like you can poke and shoot and fucking peek, and you know, you can hide in places where like the geometry did not intend for you to hide because of the way the wall shape is built, you know.
Level of difficulty. Over time, moves were discovered and layered on top of each other as players slowly untangled the mess of code that allowed them an uncharacteristic level of freedom. The unique gameplay and the high skill ceiling fostered a tight-knit community. But what really made Gunz a competitive powerhouse was the introduction of clan battles. Clan battles were the lifeblood of the competitive scene and were all about honor and prestige. Players built their identities around the clans that they played in. On a clan's profile, the clan's win-loss ratio, their worldwide ranking, and their total points were displayed for the public to see. The sense of ego in trying to preserve your clan's ranking made players all the more competitive, as your credibility in the scene was predicated on being in a good clan.
Wow.
The official clan rankings would reset monthly, meaning that every month, clans would scramble to get as many wins as possible in hopes of being in the top 100 and immortalized in the Gunz Hall of Fame. But clan battles weren't the only thing that kept the competitive scene moving forward. The complicated movesets and the robust customization options allowed for a great deal of expression in skill and personality. Unfortunately, the ability to purchase better equipment with real money meant that many games were decided not by who was the better player, but who had the biggest wallet.
Yeah, there was, and I think early on in getting like double Uzis, you could just melt anyone who didn't have them, for example, because like if you shotgun, you have to get up close, but from a distance you could, there's things like that where like, yeah, that became an issue. What I don't know if it's going to be mentioned, but like a big part of the appeal from just the outside too as well was the artwork was really, really nice, and it was like shiny Korean style, you know. I mentioned it's not I don't think it's Hyung Tae Kim directly, but that style of design, you kind of saw it in the intro a bit. Like there was a lot of really cool artwork of like characters with long leather coats, guns and katanas, posing, doing shit, and it was like, oh, what the fuck is that? I want to play that.
Yeah, gun katana is pretty much a win. Yeah.
Yet the items expired over time, requiring continuous investment if you wanted to stay overpowered. Still, the community loved their game, and fans still reminisce over the adrenaline-fueled gaming sessions nearly 2 decades later.
For the majority of the years on EG, for that 5 or so years, you could find a match any time of day, wouldn't be a problem. There was a point where you would see over 20,000 online at its very peak, maybe that first summer.
If you were in, you were in, dude.
That, like summer 2007 or so. But even all the way till its death, probably 2,000 players online toward the end there.
So what led to the failure
of
such a special game?
It's what I wanted. Oh god. Okay. Universe, help me. What the fuck was the Quake engine Viking Axe multiplayer game called? That was like melee focused, but it was in that sort of engine. Rune. It's yeah. What I kind of wanted that to be, where I was like, yo, what if you could do melee in a Quake style deathmatch thing? You know, but like this actually had the movement and the you know, wall play and all that shit as well. Exactly. I wanted this from that.
The non-traditional gameplay and the insanely steep learning curve kept casual gamers from fully committing, but the real nail in the coffin was developer neglect. With a number of ridiculously OP pay-to-win strategies, along with hackers infesting the game's official servers, it was up to the community to build private servers to keep the competitive scene alive. What this meant, unfortunately, was that unless you had access to these private servers, your experience in Gunz was likely to be frustrating and short-lived. Gunz did not have dedicated servers, and instead utilized peer-to-peer connection with a host. So playing against someone who is moderately far away meant that the host, and anyone closer to the host, would have an immense advantage over more distant opponents. The problems really started when the game
I had a solid summer of good fun.
Good gunzing.
Yeah, before I feel like, you know, some of the issues started to arise. Like there's enough good memory. Like all the bullshit here, you know, like there was a time, like early on, I think, when you're just learning the ropes and going through the thing where it's like, yo, it was a fun game to jump on and get some good sessions on.
Source code surfaced on the internet. Access to the source code meant that the game was ridiculously easy to hack. The ability to play on community-hosted servers meant that the game would live long beyond the time that Mayet was willing to support it. But Gunz was an older game, and Mayet was looking to the future. In 2011, a Korean beta was opened for Gunz 2. Gunz 2 was one of the most successful campaigns in the history of Steam Greenlight, and was a chance to refine and re-establish the accidental successes of the original title.
Wow.
Unfortunately, Mayet decided to go the generic shooter route and make the game as bland as possible. The base game for the original Gunz was not all that exciting. What kept it alive all those years were the techniques and exploits that accelerated the game to insane speeds. By removing all of those, Mayet made something that was utterly forgettable.
Oh
the
my
sequel
god, it's
meant
like
the
nearly
end
to
of the
brawl.
original title's support.
I mean,
and also,
you could say he's pointing out like the positives of what.
It's like, yo, we had all this tech that we're doing.
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
remove
yeah.
wave dashing.
I was like,
and
I was like somewhere in here, just go like, by the way, it was really fun. just let them know it wasn't all bad. It was pretty fun. I know there's a lot of bad, but it was fun. There was fun in there too. Just don't forget that part.
That's the
also
thing.
split
If you
up the
remove
core
something,
community as
if
some
you
went to
remove
the
something that the players can do, then they'll be missing it. Like you give it to them, you gotta like keep it and go forward with it.
new title, while others stayed with the original. Finally, in 2015, the IP was taken over by a different company altogether, and Gunz was stuck in the deep freezer of maintenance mode. But while developer support was cut off, there were still a couple thousand players keeping the flame alive in private servers. What kept the community alive for so long, you might ask? It's a combination of things. First is the clan system. For years, players had built and cultivated these long-standing clans. There had been rivalries, camaraderie, and a sense of loyalty that was difficult to step away from. Second is the sheer depth of the game. Spending years of your life honing your skills in a martial arts video game is no small feat, and those who are among the best wouldn't give up so easily.
This is so fighting games.
Yeah.
Dude, I've spent 7 years doing one frame links in Street Fighter 4, now I get a Street Fighter 5 and everybody can do combos and I can't even do like hard combos. This is bullshit, man.
But at least with a fighting game, you can just go to a friend's house, pop that shit in and have fun with no internet around or anything. You know, or you can walk into an arcade back in the day and just get a random game in sometimes. Yeah. You're not locked into an online server based thing where you can only enjoy it in this context and for this time period, you know?
So you have your character, obviously.
Also, I don't think it's, I think for me, a part of this was also, I am looking for third person anything to enjoy. And this was a great one. And there were not a lot of multiplayer third-person options at the time.
Right.
You just went FPS for everything. So this was one of the few things where you could fucking see and do things, you know?
Obviously. So in-game, my character would be known as Kadai. And I started my own clan in Gunz called Thief. I had my team of 4 or so core members that were in Thief. And we would get recognized because we would consistently be ranked in like the top, I don't know, 10 to 20, depending on the month. And because of that, because you're on the leaderboard so often, they see like people start to recognize you. And it's even more so for the clans that can get rank 1 every month.
Over the next few years, Gunz was in a lull. Yes, there were still people playing it, but the community wasn't growing or getting anything new. But that all changed in early 2021, when a video essay by Kadai Gaming went viral. Suddenly, big name streamers began trying the game out, YouTubers were putting out content, and pretty quickly,
it came back.
A whole new generation of gamers were starting to
Their
play,
documentary.
and old veterans were returning. The International Gunz website, or iGunz, launched on June 8th, 2021, with almost 9,000 players ranked at the time of this video, and multiple matches running at any given time.
Cool.
Unlike other private servers, iGunz removed the pay-to-win elements from the Gunz experience, allowing for an even playing field among newcomers and veterans alike. This bare-bones experience is part of why longtime Gunz players vouch for iGunz over other private server options.
If you've never played Gunz, I want to make one thing clear. This game is not easy. There's a steep learning curve, but once you begin to learn the combos, you will truly fall in love with this game. The best server to play on is iGuns.net. It's the only populated server that is completely free to play, and I'd love to see some of you guys on there. Feel free to whisper me in game if you see me anytime.
God, I wonder
Today,
if I could, like,
we get to ask the question that never would have made sense in the
wild
early
controller
2000s.
setup going on.
Could
this
Gunz truly be an esport? The skill and the spectacle are there. The early successes of the revival efforts and the interest from the community show that there's definite spectator appeal to the game. Still, the best chance for a competitive scene lies in a spiritual sequel of sorts, something that even the most ardent fans of the original are happy to acknowledge. Whatever the future for Gunz may hold, 2021 has proved that there's still a lively community around the game and all the potential for an esports scene in the near future. Do you agree that it's one of the most technical games ever made? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
I mean, I think we don't need to talk
this
about
video
esports.
is made possible.
Right on. Shoutouts to Action Esports. Ah, well, okay. It is an action. It is an esports is in the title of the channel. Therefore, that enters the conversation, understandably. Because otherwise, I'd be like, who cares about esports? Just play the fun game, you know.
Whoops.
But yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, man. No, it's cool. I didn't know there was a revival of sorts. That is dope. I would be tempted to think that a controller setup could work as long as you had the right stick like swing as quickly as a mouse can swing, because like not if you're shooting and you're trying to, you know, like aim down sights and stuff like that, then you're not going to get very far. But the way that's played up close, you're swinging your shotgun in this vague direction, you know, as an enemy is wave dashing past you. So I probably think it could happen if you used short range, you know, if you used like shotgun and melee kind of, you know, play. I think it's possible.
On a controller?
Not in a million years. I think I don't know.
I feel like I don't know anything about the game, but like there's too many things to condense in the controller, I feel.
Movement and like with new controllers, no, there's a lot you can get going on button wise between
the you need movement.
Well, WASD and then like the
you need
dashes.
Aiming. You need melee.
Here were they? I mean, here they pulled it up for 2 seconds back, and yeah, but it's like no, like you can convert. Oh, sorry, it wasn't displayed on screen. We were looking at the anyway. Yeah, you could convert WASD into, you know, that, and then you can. It's more along the lines of like the camera, because what you're all the buttons are never the issue. It's always someone with a mouse can aim a million times better than someone without a mouse.
Yeah.
So if the camera can swing at the speed of a mouse, if you can get the sensitivity to that right place, then you could do something like this. I don't think you should write off the concept of it being possible at all, because I think you can get that many inputs on the stick with these days, and I think you could probably also have your triggers and things like that be useful for dashing and such, you know, like, I mean, yeah, like the amount of actions in like doing like really fast Titanfall shit are comparable. Now nowadays we're doing that on controller, you know. It's just going to come down to like how that other side goes. But whatever the case is, I mean, you know, I'd be curious. Either way, yeah, it was a fun ass game. It was a fun ass game. And when it came, yeah, when you wanted your third person multiplayer online solutions, you know, like I said, you had Rune. By mid-aughts, you had Gears of War as well, but like that was still heavily shooter with the chainsaw bayonet.
That's pretty slow.
But you didn't have like fucking sword play.
Yeah.
You know? So like I'm ultimately looking not just for third person, but I want melee more than guns. So I'm heavily invested in anytime something like fucking Jedi Outcast. Now we're talking. The Jedi Academy and Jedi Outcast, all of that was fucking awesome. And then you put on the mod that makes it so that lightsaber like slashes are actually real, you know, and like do kill, and then you can duel. And that, like, to this day, like the sickest feature is it's a multiplayer map. Everybody's, you know, free for alling, but you can switch to your lightsaber. There's like 3 different styles and 3 different there's like double, single, and dual.
Okay.
And then you had like your different stances and stuff. But you could find somebody, duel them, do a taunt, and you only can attack each other. No one else can interfere until one of you is dead. And then you go back to the rest of the match.
That's cool.
So good. So good. The fucking best. Yeah, that's definitely worth mentioning when it comes to third person multiplayer melee, oriented games. So yeah,